Okay, so we wanted to bring this meeting to you today because we've had lots of questions around what do we do now that we've completed status summaries. We want to keep teachers engaged with this data in the formative assessment process because we believe it's an important thing to do. We know that it will help our students grow. And we also know that we need to continue to build capacity of teachers around the construct progressions. So I knew Stacy was doing some of that work. She shared it with me in an email. And so I wanted her to share that with you all and be able to spend some time walking through what they've been doing in their PLCs and the materials and resources they're using. So once again, today's session is being recorded. We normally don't record these small group sessions, and we do that on purpose because we want this to be an opportunity where we can meet in small group and have a conversation. So a large webinar where we're pushing out information at the state level, of course, we record and post those. Normally these small group sessions, because they're designed to be different, where we can chat with each other. We want that to be a risk-free environment where we can, where we don't want to record the conversations. But today, we're having a snow day. And we want to make sure that people get to hear these great ideas that are coming out of Stokes. And so we have a couple of members of the Stokes district team on the call today. Marcia Erskine's on the call. And Stacy Buck is on the call, and Stacy's going to lead us through some of these ideas that they've been working towards. So as we're moving forward today on this short small group meeting, what we'd like you to do is consider ways to support teachers during PLC meetings. And then we're going to hear from Stacy about what they've been doing in Stokes. At any time that you have a question, again, this is small group interaction, you can just unmute yourself and ask your question. Sometimes we get a lot of feedback on these calls, so we keep ourselves muted unless we have something to ask or say. You can also use the chat box feature to type into it. And somebody please alert me if there's something in the chat box because I don't always see it right away. So I just wanted you to see this fabulous picture of Stacy and Liam. This is probably how they look today. And she has forewarned me that Liam might want to participate in the meeting today too. And I love that. I'm looking forward to that actually. And I sent out a just brief bio about Stacy. She's been doing some great work for a while in Stokes. She's been a teacher of the year there. She's working as an instructional coach. And then Marcia handed the team leadership for the regional or for the district implementation team over to her because she was really doing some great stuff. Marcia entrusted her to take this team forward for kindergarten entry. And so she's been doing that work now for the past year. And so let's hear from Stacy. And Stacy, I'm going to mute myself and let you take over. But just let me know when you want me to advance a slide and I'll take care of that for you.
Well, hello. I'm here and Mr. Liam is here, and luckily my husband got to come home from work early today, so Liam might be getting to go hang out with Dad for a little while, so I can focus on the meeting and not someone who's trying to steal my headphones the entire time. But he did say hi just now, in case you couldn't hear him. But I was just going to talk a little bit about what we've done in our county now that the K3 or the KEA window is over, and we have done those summaries and all that fun stuff. So if you want to advance to the next slide. So some of the things that are important for us to note this year, Stokes County moved to weekly PLCs. Some of our schools had been meeting bi-weekly. A few of our schools had already been meeting weekly, but most of our schools had not. So that was a countywide move for all grade levels. And that has allowed us to have a lot more flexibility in looking at data on a regular basis. So we have used probably bi-weekly PLCs to look at data. Some of our schools are organizing theirs a little differently and look at data around once a month. So a couple of ways we have supported our teachers with this progression this year, because this is last year we strongly encouraged teachers to continue to gather data after the KEA window was over. And we did, as a county, decide that we would have another summary date in the spring, but it wasn't very structured. Teachers felt like they were not sure how to proceed. They weren't sure. They were like, well, how much data do we need? What do we, all these questions about how much data, how frequently. And we have a lot of those same questions from our teachers about M-Class. So we kind of approached it like we do M-Class. We want them to progress monitor students in an organic way that's meaningful to their daily instruction. But some teachers are very structured and organized and want things on a schedule, which is fine. They want to make sure they're getting all of the pieces they need. So we organize things in a couple of different ways. We have a Google Calendar that we created that has dates for when different pieces of data would be potentially gathered. And we did try to schedule these different windows around things that we knew were happening already. For example, some of the data gathered in January meshes very well with the K2 math assessment. And we decided it would make sense for our teachers to be able to use the K2 math assessment to also help gather some of their K3 FAP data, like object counting and following directions, fall perfectly with that K2 math assessment. So why not get double duty from something you're already doing anyway? So we have the Google Calendar as an option, and obviously it does not reflect our current snow day situation, and we will be adjusting that very shortly, I'm sure. And if you go to the next slide, we also created, it's like a 2-page Google Doc that has those windows and the constructs that we're asking them to look at during those weeks, because some of our teachers are not exceptionally fond of Google Calendar or not comfortable with it, or just want to have something printed off on the wall in their classroom or on their clipboard so they know what they're looking at when. So we tried to make sure we were flexible in how we presented this information to our teachers, so that they could get the most from this. And I realized that I linked to our document in my slide, but it's not going to be something you can actually click on from the GoToMeeting, the recording. So I will email that to Cindy, and she can maybe share that somehow with everyone if you would like that. And then on the, yes, ma'am.
So what I can do is when we post this recording, I can also post any materials along with it.
Okay, perfect. Well, I will make sure I send you a link to those. Oh, and Marcia says something too. On the next slide, Cindy, I have some different forms that we have to help teachers keep up with their data beyond the platform. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the platform and having all of that information in one place, and I don't have to write things down in a separate place, but not everyone thinks that way, and I completely appreciate that. And sometimes just for your own organization, especially if you have a kid who's absent a lot or a specific construct that you feel like your class really needs to look at more frequently, you may need something to keep up with your information outside of the technology piece. So we have a few different pieces. The little clip of the form with the gray lines came from our district KEA K3 FAP wiki. So we downloaded those, and we actually put them on our county live binder to make sure teachers could find them very quickly with all of our other K3 pieces. And the other forms were ones that we created that were very similar. We actually created them before we found the ones on the district wiki. So once we realized there was something there, we were like, oh, well, we haven't reinvented the wheel for nothing. But it's okay. Now teachers have options. The one behind the form with the gray and white lines is basically the same thing, only it doesn't have a separate column for student name. So when I created that one, I kind of envisioned teachers just writing the student name in whichever place along their progression they felt like that student was. So they could kind of quickly look at their whole class and see, wow, we have 5 students that are at this level. Maybe we can do a small group and look at getting them some work with a certain thing. And then the other side of the slide has an individual student option. So if, I think this would be especially helpful if we were looking at gathering data for MTSS. So this might be something to look at if that's a place your county is going, where you can actually have the student's name across the top and maybe jot in dates and notes on where along the progression you see a student at a particular time. So this would allow, I think, a lot of the ability to see growth over time in a specific student, kind of like some of the reports that we can print off of the platform or off of the website. This would just be more of one for note-taking as a teacher. So you could have just that specific child in mind when you're looking at this piece. And those are the big things that we kind of have used during our PLCs. We use definitely the whole class options more frequently, but I can definitely see as we move into really analyzing what's happening with a particular student, using more of those individual student options. And I've definitely encouraged teachers to use the reports from the website when they have conferences with teachers, or if they have a student who may already have an IEP and they're having IEP meetings, so they can look at what they're doing well. And sometimes it's nice for parents to see, especially if they have a student who's already struggling in kindergarten, that we're not solely focused on the academic part of that child. We're focused on the broader sense of how is this child succeeding in the classroom as a little person in their own right, and not just as a student, quote unquote. And then,
Hey, Stacy, I just wanted to say a couple of things here, because what you've created here are mimic a lot of the, I don't want to say mimic isn't the right word, but they align with, they're nice scaffolds for the reports that are in the system.
yes.
So, yeah. So if teachers get used to using these paper versions, there is the class profile report, which is this very similar to what you've created with this whole class option, where they can put the name under where the child might be along the progression. So there's a class profile that they can run that does that same kind of thing, groups the children along the progressions, right? And then there's the we haven't always had these reports, so teachers are first they need to understand why they might want to use that report and what utility it has for them. And so I think what you're doing here is providing that way in. If you like doing it like this, there's a nice report that does that for you in the system when you get your data all in there, right? And continue to use it. And even if they aren't using the platform beyond day 60, they can use these paper versions beyond day 60, right? Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. And I really like the reports that are available
Yeah.
on the website now. And I think that they're so incredibly beneficial because you can see that growth. I do know that some of our teachers have had I don't want to say reluctance because I don't think that's the right word. They've not necessarily been putting in all of the data that they see as they go along. So there's been some. I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Like they're putting in where they feel those students are at the end of the KEA window, and not necessarily having several data points as they go along. So I feel like maybe having this paper version will kind of encourage them to see the benefit of having that data in the platform so that they can have that on the reports and see that kind of like, yes, Marcia, the teachers aren't necessarily using the platform day to day. It's not something that's integrated into their classroom. Like
Right.
it's not that natural thing to pick up their device and take pictures while they're going through. So I think that's something we're still working on in our county, is making that an integrated part of their class.
Even though they might have this data, right, and they could use
Mm-hmm.
the paper version, they're not always putting everything in the platform. I'm just restating what I heard you say, so I've got it in my head. I thought that
Yes.
was the case because yeah, so I see what Marcia said, that many of the K teachers just don't get the value of the technology. Yeah, so this might be a nice way to bring that to the forefront, because what they're doing here on these paper versions is what they could do with the technology platform in a matter of clicks, right? To get the
Right.
printout of where the students are along the progressions, to they could print a report that shows the development and learning over time of where students were along the constructs, if they're implementing if they're putting the evidence into the platform. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And I do think that's um, some of our newer kindergarten teachers have embraced it a little bit more. And I think it's because they haven't already developed their own system of gathering this data. I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of our teachers who've been in kindergarten for a long time absolutely are having this data and using it, but they have their own method of collecting it and keeping it organized, and they're less inclined to use the technology. So definitely our newer kindergarten teachers are taking the lead on using the platform. But like Marcia just said, we do have a lot of veteran kindergarten teachers. So it's getting some of our newer kindergarten teachers to kind of, lead the way with the technology piece, even though our veterans have, those great skills in helping the children actually progress along the continuums, because they've been doing these things for years, and now we're really getting to see those with actual data points. And I think that's just something that we're having to adjust our mindset, that the things that we've always been doing, now we have this place to keep this data for uses beyond just our own personal use as a teacher.
Yeah.
Like with MTSS.
Yes. Yes. And so I had a conversation with the veteran teachers when I was there for one of your training days, and
Mm-hmm.
they definitely value the data, and it's learning the pathway, I think.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so, having some of the forms on paper definitely, I think, is helping, just so they can see, here's one way you can keep up with this information.
Yep.
And if they have notes, then they can, then put those. My goal is for people to not have to do this in multiple places. I feel like that's something that will make this so much more seamless for people, is when they're not having to do it on paper and then load it into the platform and have that extra step. So we're working towards that still. I think that's still something that is not necessarily a strength that we all have. But I do have some other supports. Yeah,
Yeah.
and go ahead, sorry.
And it's okay for them to be right where they are right now and to use their paper version and to always use the paper version if that's where their comfort is, to go from the paper to the electronic platform. I think that's okay. We do want them to put some data into the platform and see what that does for them. If taking the picture, speaking into it, we want them to try. We definitely want them to try to use it, and also to have some comfort with what they're doing with their data. So I think it's okay, and these tools that you've created go a long way in honoring where they are and providing that scaffold for them. I appreciate you sharing. And I just want to say, I don't know what is happening with technology at my end. Sometimes you need a bridge, Marcia. Every time I try to click on the PowerPoint or back to see the chat box, it just clears my screen. So I'm working hard, but I don't know what's happening. So bear with me on that. You guys keep getting to see the picture that I took when I was in Italy with my daughter. So I don't know what's happening. So I need a technology bridge right now, Marcia. But I'll keep working.
Well,
Okay.
I only have one more slide to share, so then it's whatever y'all have at the end. So that'll be okay. Hopefully. Yay, there it went. So this is actually my favorite piece right now. And this is something we are just beginning. But we have started the process of adding some other team members to our classes. Since that is something that we have, kind of played with that ability to do, having our TAs in as a support member, and our music, art, PE teachers, even our administrators that are engaged in wanting to have their hands in this, so that those people can take pictures and add them to the classes, and then the teachers can go back and look at that data and put them along the progression where they go. But that kind of frees our teachers up, because I think part of their issue has been remembering to use the technology when they're already doing things. So having their TA have that ability to walk around with a phone or an iPad or the computer and take pictures while the teacher is working with students, and then they can go back and look at those. Even if it's during their planning time, they're still having that data gathered so that they don't have to worry about all the pieces themselves. So we're having more of a team approach to it, so that everyone's involved in making sure this happens. And this picture is one of our kindergarten classes at Germantown Elementary with our PE teacher. Our PE teacher and music teacher jointly do a dance unit, and they were learning how to do the Macarena. So we thought this would be a great dance to observe crossing the midline. So we thought that was fun to be able to use with our other support teachers.
Okay, I think we've answered folks' questions. Thank you so much again, Stacy. I'm going to turn this over to Nikki and try to do this the correct way. Bear with me just 1 minute.
All right, thank you, Cindy. I'm not in presentation mode here, so that's a challenge. I just want to follow up from the presentation today with a couple of reminders about our support. all of you have hopefully seen our, oh dear, sorry about that, our RIT brief. Cindy and I send this newsletter out at the beginning of every month just to our point people. And with the expectation / hope that everybody shares this newsletter with anyone in your district who needs this news. So any of your kindergarten teachers, any of your instructional facilitators or coaches, anybody who would benefit from having the information in the news brief. And we do different series where we focus. Right now we're focusing on the critical components of the formative assessment process. And so you'll see information about that in the brief. And also information about our quick guides to support different construct progressions, in addition to lots of other things. So we hope that you'll share that across your district when you receive that information from us. And another way that we're working really hard to stay connected with all of our districts is by using Facebook and Twitter. And so our regional implementation team shares a variety of information via these two social media channels. And we hope that you'll like us and follow us and get information those ways from us as well. And then finally, when we do things, like when we provide our newsletters and our Facebook and Twitter feeds, we're hoping to meet the needs of people in all the districts we support. But also when we do these small group go-tos, we're really trying to provide targeted information that meets different district needs, because the 30 districts that are in the Piedmont Triad and Northwest all are doing different things with implementation. We'd love it if you would share with us what KEA topic you'd like to know more about. That really helps our regional team plan these small group go-tos so that they are meeting the needs of the specific districts that we invite. So if you have an idea right now of some topic you'd like to hear more about on a go-to like this one, go ahead and type it in the chat box. If later on today you think of something, or sometime in the future you think of something that would be a beneficial topic for you, just send either Cindy or me an email and let us know. And we appreciate that feedback, because that really helps us know that we are sharing information about topics that you need to know more about. So thank you for joining us today. We know that today has been a special circumstance with the weather and everybody being at home, but we're glad that we could that we had Stacy and Marcia with us today to share, and so many of you able to attend. And we look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Thanks so much.